we are seeing right now is, 4 years ago, at this point in the primary, candidates had run 39,000 ads. Excuse me, they had run far more than that. They'd run 66,000 ads. At this point this year, they've only run 39,000 ads. That's a drop. Why are the candidates not spending more on ads? Well, because the outside special interest groups are spending a hell of a lot more. In fact, they've aired 30,000 ads, a 1,600% increase, and spent $15 million doing it so far in the election. And keep in mind, 4 years ago, you had primaries going on both sides, and so you could really amplify these numbers. This is all thanks to the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, which is aggressively defended by the Libertarian attorneys law firm, the Institute for Justice, IJ.org is their website. Paul Sherman, one of their attorneys and spokesperson. Paul, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
I'm looking at your website and your defense of Citizens United. Mm-hmm. And the article in which you defend it. And you write, the framers recognize that individuals, not the government, have the right to decide what to say and what messages to listen to. How is it that if an individual working at General Electric or ExxonMobil that will have no say whatsoever when that corporation decides to donate millions of dollars to whether it's Obama's SuperPAC, which now has $6 million, or whether it's to Karl Rove's SuperPAC, which is, declared a $200 million goal. I don't get it. There's no individual say here when companies contribute. It's just the individual executives. Why should they be able to use their corporations as piggy banks?
Well, there are two reasons why corporations should be allowed to speak in elections. The first...
Corporations are not speaking, Paul. You and I both know that. It's the executives in the corporations who are making the decisions. If the workers made the decisions, they would probably be very different.
It's entirely possible that if the workers were in charge of corporate spending, it would lead to different political messages. But the First Amendment speaks in terms of speech, not speakers. It says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, and it doesn't give Congress any authority to make speaker-based distinctions on who's allowed to participate in the political debate. So
you are firmly of the belief that when the founders wrote the First Amendment, and they said, in fact, let me just read the whole thing here. Very straightforward. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That when they included the word people in there, that they were talking about corporations.
Well, I think what they were trying to do was they were trying to take away the power of government to regulate speech by any source. The First Amendment isn't a grant of rights to people. The First Amendment is a recognition that there are limits on government power. Government can pursue many different ends, but is limited in the ways it can choose to do that. And one of the things that it's not allowed to do is limit who's allowed to participate in political debate.
Well, if that's the case, then how do we stop America from becoming a predatory oligarchy?
Well, one of the ways that we stop it is by having frequent elections where candidates who
are front men for big corporations.
Well,
right now you got dueling corporations. You got Shelley Adelson, who wants to bomb Iran, sponsoring Newt Gingrich, and you've got John Paulson, a Wall Street billionaire who wants to keep his 15% top tax rate, sponsoring Mitt Romney. What we're seeing is interest groups dueling through frontmen. How is that in any way reflect anything that resembles what the founders had in mind?
Because the only thing those interest groups are doing is spending money to try and persuade American voters. Ultimately, it's up to American voters to decide which candidates they want to vote for. But the real question is,
but those people are hiding behind anonymity.
Well, I think it's silly to say that Sheldon Adelson is hiding behind anonymity. His participation in the election has been known about for weeks.
Well, he's not at this moment, but if there's a great article about this in the front page of the New York Times today, right now, about how many millions of dollars have gone into the Romney campaign and PACs where they run them through 401c3s, and then they talked about one check for $250,000 that came from a company whose address was a PO box and has no employees, and that's dead end. You can't go beyond that. So, how does that promote democracy when people can buy our candidates?
Well, first of all, the only thing that people can buy is the opportunity to speak to the American people and try and convince the American people.
On behalf of or against a particular candidate, which is functionally the same thing. If you go to a candidate right now and say, hey, I can make sure that you get, $50, $100 million in campaign ads that are going to help your candidacy, or I'm going to put that much money into your opponent to destroy your candidacy unless you do X or Y, don't you think that candidate's going to be, well, okay, how high should I jump? Where's X? What's Y?
Well, what you've really identified is not a problem with political speech. It's a problem with government power. If we don't want people making those kinds of arrangements with politicians, what we need to do is reduce the power of government to hand out political favors. And campaign finance laws do nothing to combat that problem.
You're comparing apples and oranges. What we're talking about here is... Are you suggesting, for example, that if Newt Gingrich becomes president, that he should not have the power to declare a war on Iran if he thinks that's in the best interest of the United States, or Shelley Adelson does?
Well, under the Constitution, only Congress has the power to declare war. So yes,
well, he shouldn't have the. Well, I agree with you on that, but he shouldn't have the bully. Well, let's say Shelley Adelson and his buddies, buy a majority of Congress too.
Well, I
mean, I just don't understand how this could be anybody's vision of anything other than a plutocracy.
Oh, I have to disagree with your characterization that what's being done is that positions in Congress are being bought. Again, the only way anyone gets elected to Congress is by convincing a sufficient number of voters that they deserve to be in Congress.
No, they don't. That's not true. An individual candidate doesn't have to convince anybody. The corporate nowadays, I mean, you've got more money being spent by outside groups just so far in the primaries than by the candidates. It's not the candidates trying to convince people. It's Protect Our Future, or whatever the hell Mitt Romney's Super PAC is called. Win Our Future.
I think the real question here is, should voters be allowed to decide for themselves which political messages they want to consider before they cast their ballot, or should the government decide that for them?
Well, that's like saying that a pharmaceutical company should be if they run an ad saying, hey, buy heroin, it's good for you. Because they actually, at one point in time, that was a product of Bayer and Company here in the United States. And it was a brand name, and help relieve coughs in babies. And it does, I suppose. That's a free speech issue. That if they want to, that advertising works, and whether it's selling products or selling candidates, and therefore we should just allow unlimited advertising, whether it's true or not.
Well, look, if your vision of the American voter is that voters are empty-headed and they can have opinions poured into their head by whoever spends the most amount of money on one side or the other, then maybe that's a pretty strong argument for regulating campaign finance. But
how about if my vision is that the American voters are so busy because of 30 years of Reaganomics, working 3 jobs just to get by, that they don't really have time to dig into politics any deeper than the ads they see on TV. And the ads they see on TV are actually courtesy of ExxonMobil and Wall Street.
I mean, that's not a problem with campaign finance. What you've identified, if it's anything, is a problem with democracy. And again, it goes back to what sorts of things should the government be doing? If we want to have government that can control virtually every facet of Americans' economic and personal life...
That's not the issue. That is absolutely not the issue. The issue is, and we don't, and nobody wants that. If we can just stipulate that. The issue is, should corporations have free speech rights in the political arena? And I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree, Paul. You say yes, I say no. People can read your take over at ij.org, the Institute for Justice. Thanks for dropping by today.
Thanks for having me.